Hello, how's it going? My name is Troy Turner, and I've got some data to present to you today. For starters, the page we're looking at right now will display the name of the company, Topped Corn, and we will be looking at data for their popcorn type sales for the month of July. At least on this sheet, we have some other data on other sheets, but this sheet will show a few graphical, a pie chart, a few bar charts, and I'm going to get into it. I'm going to go and show you, for starters, our more basic data tabs. So right here we've got a list, or basically about a start of a table that's compiling some data here, and it's nondescript. It gives you enough data. You can tell looking at that there's some states that you can see California, and you can see on this date for quantity of the original blend was sold in California. So there's information here. It's just not presented very well, and we can skip to what's the start of a small table here where we can see just the general sales of each flavor by table, or by each flavor here. So generally this makes it, there's not a lot of data here. It's pretty simple. It's just the sum of each flavor, and it shows generally Old Bay is doing, or the original blend is doing the best, and then about the same between Old Bay truffle and sea salt caramel. They're all around the same area. Specifically, we'll show you the 4 different stores. There's they have one online store, or they have one actual location in the Tyson Mall, and this is the sales data for the actual location in the mall. And then they also have some food trucks as well. So this original sheet I showed you at the start was the 4 locations for where the food trucks are located: Fargo Square, George Washington, Georgetown, and K Street. And this gives you a really good description of what areas are doing great and what areas aren't. And realistically, we'll see later, we'll go to another tab and show you what their average daily sales should be, and it'll show that these 4 locations actually are fairly successful, specifically this Farragut Square one. And this would tell you that one of them would be doing better than the other, and clearly that one is, and it would also tell you which flavors are doing better in certain places. And specifically in the area in Farragut Square, generally most of them are all doing pretty well, although sea salt and caramel are definitely a top pick in that area, and it seems to be across the board. It's a top pick in George Washington, a top pick in Georgetown, and almost a top pick in K Street. It's got second place by a little bit. And these charts here are not editable, so we can see that they've got it listed by each actual flavor, and then the different color bars are the locations in which they're sold. So you can clearly tell with Farragut Square in blue, it is much more profitable than the rest of them, followed by K Street. But we have some charts later on that we can dive in even more specific, and we can swap them around. So we can put the locations in here and search by flavors in this chart, so you can see a little bit better representation of stuff. And we're going to go down the line real quick. This is a small little data tab that's actually it's just explaining whether these trucks can afford to take out a loan or not. And it might look like a lot of different information with price, interest, and stuff that's general loan information. But the important cells right here are 9 and 10. This cell with the formula that's in it will tell you whether you should buy a new truck or not, whether this company should buy. And it's actually quite more simple than looking at all of this. I can break it down for you really easily. If your average sales are more than your monthly payment, meaning you're making a profit, buy a new truck. And it's as easy as that. If you want to look up here, saying if B5 is less than B9, so if B5, your monthly payment, is less than B9, buy it. And if not, it's going to tell you to pass, because obviously you don't want to have a monthly payment of 4,000 and only be making 3,000. It wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't be able to afford the truck. So this is telling you with the information given, with the amount of money that they're making, at least for the month of July, it's definitely a buy it. So that's a good thing. We know the company's making money. We'll go on now. Now instead of the food truck, we're going to the store that's in the mall. And this one, there's no charts here, but there's a nice table, and it actually will show you a few things. The one thing that I find most important, the easy thing other than numbers, is the sales goal met, which is a very easy thing to follow. It's either a no or a yes. You either made the sales goal or you didn't. And it's also another, for people who don't know Excel, it's also another really simple formula. It might seem like a lot because of all the numbers. You've got the dates, the actual flavors, all of these different counts, and then you've got some stuff on the side of how much each box costs. But it's actually a lot more simple than that. Just kind of like the food truck one, where it's just one parameter ran against another. This one's kind of the same way. So the easiest way to see if during that day you made your sales goal, all you do is you take over here in box J3 or J2, sorry about that, your daily sales goal. If in a day and a date and the specific set of flavors, if you met that goal, this box would appear yes. So with our daily sales goal being $12.50, this one was very close. That's kind of upsetting. It's very close. You hit $12.45, so $5 off, and even though it's close, Excel is going to come up and tell you that no, the sales goals were not met. They were not far off. If it were me making to do this chart over again, I would probably add in this H column what the difference was, how much you needed to meet the sales goal. So it would at least show you how close you were, and you could color code it. If you were within $100, you could put green in the background to show you, hey, it's not that bad. We're still very close to it. And then if you were $500, $600 off, you could put red and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be selling that day, or we shouldn't be selling in that market. But it looks like for the most part there's a lot of yeses. Yes, 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 no, yes, yes. So it looks like the Tyson store in the mall is doing fairly well for itself. Anyway, we're going to go on to the next tab. Now here is an actual table where we can start getting more specific with things. And if you've seen these dates reoccur, that's because they are for the month of July, but these dates are specifically for a buy one get one free sale. So it's the amount of popcorn that they sold during this sale, and this sale lasted from 6:30 all the way till 7:06. So you'll see the same dates pop up. So it's not a large amount of time. Which the issue with that is that you're not having quarters, you're not having years, you're not having long periods of time. So it's hard to make business decisions on just a buy one get one free sale for a week. It's a week-long period. But it's hard to see what's doing well, but it's still very easy to see what's not doing well. We'll get into some tables later where you'll be able to see what stores didn't sell barely anything through the entire sale. And if you don't sell something during a sale, you're not going to sell it during a non-sale period. So it may not give us the best representation data, as opposed to if we were to have say a month, 3 months for a quarter, or have an entire year's worth of data, but it will give us good, important pieces of data. But anyway, back to this chart. If you can't tell, it's not sorted by date because it goes to 7/6 and comes back to 6:30. This type of table will let us sort information by each of the categories, and currently right now it's been showing by date. Sorting by A to Z through by the flavor. So it's starting with all of the Old Bay, then it's starting with all of the original blend down to sea salt, and then lastly truffle. And we can come up and we can do a couple different things. If you wanted to see specific quantities by state, you could easily come here and sort A to Z for states. Or if you wanted to limit the states, say you just wanted to see what you think the biggest states are. So maybe California, maybe Washington D.C. Where's Nevada? New York. Here we go. So there's some pretty big states. So you can minimize it to just those 3 states. So there are the California ones: D.C., New York. And there's no charts here to show, there's no pie charts or bar charts to give you a good representation of how much is in each area, but we will get to that later. And we can also sort largest to smallest. So within these 3 states that we have picked, we can see what days the most were sold. So on the very first day of the sale, DC sold the most out of any of these 3 states for the entire sale, sold 14 of the truffles. And we'll actually, I'm going to go back here and select all again so we have all the states. So we'll see what day everything, the total jumped to the top. So we'll see, and it actually is the same exact thing. This was the very most successful day. Between that and New York were tied. DC's selling truffles on the 30th was the largest seller. We sold 14 that day. So it gives you a good representation of also what days are the best. And this is kind of jumbled around because it goes from the 30th to the 2nd to the 1st to the 4th, back to the 30th. But you can also sort it by date if you'd like to, oldest to newest, so you can just go down the list of the first day, second day, third day, and see what each place sold, how much of it sold. And it's a good, if you have a specific purpose, if you need to go look up which quantity sold the most, or you can look up which quantity sold the least, because in a small period of time, that actually might be a more important information. If you have certain items that aren't selling in states at all during an entire sale, you can go smallest to largest, and these are all the items that only sold 2. So at least there weren't, I don't think this is going to report any of the items that didn't sell at all. But all of these only sold 2 for their day that they sold. So right here, and it's actually still sorted by date. So on the first day of the sale, 6:30, these items right here, the original blend only sold 2 in Alabama, or is it Alaska? I can't remember. And 2 in Virginia. So if you see a name reoccurring a lot, like I see sea salt caramel reoccurring quite a bit, that might not be as good of a product as some of your other ones. But we'll get into other tables that'll show a more specific set of information. So this is back to the original one that I looked at, where it was just very basic. It just showed you which items sold and how much the grand total. So they sold during the wholesale 553. The original blend definitely did the best out of it, but we will get even more in depth with this one. This one will tell you in all the different states, almost the same thing as the other one, but now we have specific parameters we can click on. So if I wanted to just look at California, click that button. It's as simple as that, and it'll show you for the entire period of time. We'll go to July. For the entire period of time in July, this is what we sold for these 7-1, 7-3, 7-4, 7-5, and 7-6. So apparently on 7-2 there weren't any items sold, but yeah, it's selected. So that might be something that you would contact your store and be like, hey, just wondering why, what was going on the second, what happened, why were no items sold when there were items sold throughout the rest of the days during the sale? Was there anything going on? Was the store down for maintenance? What was happening? Yeah, see, we can come over here specifically to double check that to the date section, click on 7-2, and there's nothing. So it's a good representation to see what went right, but more specifically what went wrong. Because if you can prevent what goes wrong, as long as you're making a profit, if you can prevent what goes wrong, that can be even more beneficial than trying to improve what's already working. And I can go and clear the filter out so we can go look back up at all the places, and now we can go search just by day. So just on the very first day of the sale, the total boxes were 95, so 95 total, and then we can look in the total section for each different flavor. So original blend, like we showed on that other chart in the pivot table over here, original blend was the most popular, and it shows on the first day original blend did sell the most out of all the other ones. Followed by sea salt, caramel, and truffle in close second, and close to each other as well. And then Old Bay didn't do too well, and you can actually see Old Bay only sold in Maryland and New Jersey. So some of these other states where popcorn's selling, we can look and can get rid of that parameter and see if if it's selling across the board, maybe not on the first day, but maybe it's selling a lot in other places. So we can see like it didn't sell here. It didn't sell in California on the first day. It didn't sell in California on the second day. Oh no, that was the first of the month. So the third day, California sold nothing, which, like we said, we were going to go talk to the store about that, because that's a big no-no. You got to sell some product. But then here we go. So California comes back and they sold a lot of product. So I mean, it can have there's some very valuable information here. So they seem like they're back on track. And I'm sure, let's check California specifically. And yes, this information, when you narrow it down to just California, Old Bay is not a very popular flavor there. So maybe that'd be the type of flavor that it might not make sense to put into the stores. Eventually, if you're selling enough other stuff, you could pull Old Bay from the store and replace it with original blend or truffle, because truffle is very popular there. Give the products that sell more, give them more shelf space. So these parameters give you a really good way to filter out some data you don't want, to get the data you do want. And speaking of filtering out, we're going to have to do a lot of it on this one, because this is a little hard to look at. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of bars. There's a lot of states. Some of the states are repeating because they repeat for each of the dates at the bottom. And there's an awful lot of data. And this is a very useful tool if you know how to minimize it. So over to the side here, this is pretty self-explanatory. You can select just by specific items. So let's just select the original blend, our most popular one. And hopefully the data will get much easier to look at, and it does. So it's split up a lot better now. The bars got thicker, so they're easier to see. You can even see the numbers inside of them. And it also is still split up very nicely by date and the states that sold at that date. So on the very first day, you can see Ohio sold the most of the original blend at 12 boxes. North Carolina came very close at 10. The next date, these two states tied. Next date, this one skyrocketed, with New York selling 14. The only other time that happened was on the very last day. West Virginia sold 14. So that's a good way to narrow it down. We'll go back to select all of them. We'll make the chart look a little hectic. Let's select it by a specific state. So let's deselect, and let's click Maryland. Let's just pick a different state we haven't talked much about. And this shows a good representation of what's sold in Maryland. So while Old Bay hasn't been popular in other states, Old Bay is the most popular in Maryland. So this is a good way to see what items, if you thought weren't selling well, actually are selling in certain areas. So you can see what items specifically aren't selling well. Truffle, for instance, only sold 2 during this entire sale in Maryland. So truffles definitely were not the popular flavor, versus 10 sold the first day, 11, 6, 12, 10. Old Bay was doing great. Original blend took a little bit of time to get kick-started, but now original blend's doing good. I would assume if the sale continued, the sale for original blend would also continue. It would pick up. But yes, this will tell you sea salt caramel didn't do too well either. It was just the last day of the sale that they finally sold some sea salt caramel and some truffle. So maybe Maryland's a type of area where you wanna pull certain products and just leave your big sellers in that area. It seems like Maryland's got some die-hard Old Bay fans. A lot of people like that on their chips. So it seems like something, if that's the way that the data is going to look during the sale, it's probably the way the data is going to look after the sale. But we can go in and unfilter the date. We can hit select all, and we can also filter by date. So if we want to look and see what happened on the last day of the sale, because it seemed like more stuff was sold on the last day of the sale. So we'll hit OK. It's going to show different states here. And this is also a good one. It'll show each state and what they sold. And sometimes it's a little hard to look at if you haven't memorized the color coding over here. But we'll see. We'll go to the original blend. They're most popular. We'll filter it even more. On the last day, what states sold original blend? And it was actually only 3 of them. West Virginia being a very large portion of it at 14. But we show a couple other states, and it will automatically filter out the states that didn't. It says we're filtered here to add, but if they didn't sell, they're not going to have a name here, so it's not going to cloud up the chart at all. But So we've got some good information here. If you wanted to say on the last day how much of it, or how much old original blend sold, it's very simple. And this shows you a very, very easy chart. We can now switch items, and at this point we can see what each item did. So we'll unselect original blend, select Old Bay, hit OK. And this one, Old Bay actually did do really well, just not in the states that original blend did well in, but it did very well in Maryland, very well in West Virginia, and did pretty decent in North Carolina, and had a couple sales in DC. We can go back, filter out Old Bay, we'll see what sea salt caramel did. And this is a really good representation of if you want to see specific days. You can say the last two, assuming maybe the sale ended on a Saturday, Sunday. You can see on 7/5 and 7/6. So definitely more was sold on the last day on 7/6. That seems to be the trend that I'm seeing with all these, is that the biggest day of the sale was absolutely the last day. But 7/5 we had some items sold too. And it's interesting because it's almost completely different states that bought on 7/5 and 7/6. So California people bought on 7/5. We'll just call that Saturday. On Saturday, California bought, and New Jersey bought, and New York bought. And on Sunday, no one bought anything in those three states. No one bought any sea salt caramel. So it's interesting. And the sample size is so low. Like I said, it's only about a week's period of time. So you're going to get odd inconsistencies like this. But what it does show you is it does show you all the states that in the entire week didn't sell anything. And that's the important data. That's the data we want to look at. So I'm going to go back and select everything so the chart looks slightly normal again. And we're left with this. What this tells you is there's a lot of data here, but what it will specifically tell you is what states just did well. What states specifically did well on certain days. New York knocked it out of the park on the 1st. Just sold a ton of truffle. That's probably the only reason that back on this, truffle is even at 21%. I think without that data on that day there, on the second day, I think that their percentage would have been probably a lot lower. Not sure what happened there, but their truffles skyrocketed. That's probably the most of a single item that was sold. That is the most of a single item. It was also the highest number. The only one that's higher would be Virginia on the last day, but that's split between two items. So it should tell you that truffle has a market. There is a market for it. So you don't want to count it out just because it didn't have the most sales, because clearly if it can have skyrocketing days like that in New York, it could do it again. So tons of useless information here when you know how to use the chart. And then lastly, this is our original data field where most of this data, actually all of this data, is being pulled from. So as lackluster as this is the heart of it and the brains of it. This is where all of your information is coming from, and this is what can give birth to this, where we can filter out all of the items we need. All of these other charts from we can look at it in the numbers aspect instead of a chart aspect. Let's go look at that. New York. That crazy chart. That's all they sold. All New York sold that whole day was truffles. And that was the most of a single item that is sold in a single day. So you can't judge too hard on the items, which items sold better, but you can definitely see which items didn't sell. Because in New York that day, nothing but truffles sold. So that might show you if we weren't gonna sort by day, if we take the filter off, we might see which ones don't sell well. So in New York, Old Bay doesn't sell too well. That's not a big seller. Neither is sea salt caramel, really. In New York, you might want to just create more shelf space for truffle and original blend, and opt out of trying to stock up because this only sold on one day. This sold on the 3rd. The Old Bay only sold one day in the entire sale, so it's not beneficial to the company to keep it on the shelves. So I love these charts. They make it super easy when you know how to use them. And we're going to go find some more specific information. Let's go find the top 10 sales. Let's see what our top sales are. And we can see, let's find a different table to use. We'll find it with this one. Go to quantity, sort largest to smallest. So So it's going to throw the total at the top because the total in theory should be the largest number. So these were our top 10 sales right here. 5 through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there you go. Top 10 sales days. So they're pretty big numbers. These are we're gonna shift the data the most. And as we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those 10 days were all original blend. So we can definitely see that this type of data, our biggest sales, 7 of the 10 of them going to original blend, definitely shows in this chart. Is absolutely our biggest sales, the biggest chunk of sales out of all of them. This is what the company should be putting the majority of their time into marketing. This is the staple product of the company. But it also shows there's a little bit of everything. There's 1 sea salt, there's 1 truffle in there. There's no Old Bay, so out of the top 10 sales, Old Bay was none of them. So that's something to keep in mind. That might be a flavor that when you take your second round of creating new flavors, you might drop a flavor. That might be something, if that's gonna be something that's not in your top 10, because it doesn't have a top sale until you get into the top 15th sale, being 10 here in West Virginia, which isn't far off from 10 over here, because even in the top 10 sales right here, there's a few of them that sold 10 a day. So it's a lot of data. It's once this stays around for longer, once it goes past this buy one get one free sale, you'll accumulate more data, and this will give you a lot better representation than it does now of the items that are doing well and the items that are not doing well. And you'll be able to make more accurate decisions, because who knows, after the sale, maybe enough people will try the truffle in New York because they had their skyrocketing day for New York truffles, and they might say, holy cow, we need to tell everybody. And the way social media works, stuff gets around, so 2 weeks from now, truffles could be the biggest and best selling product that you have. So these charts will definitely become more useful as they age, which is the great part of them. This should be something that should grow with the company, and as more data gets entered into this data chart, as more of it is accepted here, and as the company grows, these charts will give a more accurate representation. And hopefully what you'll want to see is these numbers on the outside here grow, and this one shrink, but not because of less sales. We just want to see all of the products doing well. We want to see all of their totals come come close to each other. We don't want to see one drop off, because at that point, this is kind of the deciding factor. If we had one of these, say if truffles was at 7%, if it was just far below the rest of them, this is a pretty good indicator. It's very plain. It tells one thing. It tells how much of each item sold. If it was that low, that would be the good indicator of we probably shouldn't make this anymore. We will make more money putting more of a different product in its place. So as all of this new data gets added and all of these charts get updated, this is probably one of the most important. This is the most plain but important piece of data, saying what sells, what items sell, and it couldn't be simpler than that. And it's why I enjoy working with it. All of the other charts are great, and I think that should be everything. I think I've shown just about everything. I do want to take one last second to look at this chart, because there is a very important piece of information that should be coming after the sale: the new price. The boxes are going to go up from 5 to 7, which is going to adjust the sales goal from $12.50 to $7.50. So it adjusts it by $500, and the price per box goes up by 2. So every $2 is $500, meaning every $1 is $250. So roughly they're expecting 250 boxes to sell every day. And you can tell that anything that's under 250 boxes is a no, anything that's above 250 is a yes. So even with the new sales goal, with the new price per box, they still expect to sell the exact same amount of boxes, which is bold, because some people will refuse to pay for something if it goes above a certain price. So that this is showing that the company is confident enough that if they raise their price to $7, they will not lose any customers. They will still retain the same sales goal, and they still think that their sales goal is fair if it still stays at a total of 250 boxes, which is good. And I'm hoping that we can continue this trend, because we do have some very, very chart-topping numbers here. On the 11th, this is after the 1 day or the buy one get one sale. On the 11th, 377 boxes sold, which is way more than the sales goal, the current sales goal of $1,250. It's almost $2,000, almost $2,000. So I'm hoping that when the price raises, don't lose any customers from it. Hoping that we've got a little bit of brand loyalty, and they decide that this popcorn is to die for. I love Old Bay. I love the sea salt caramel. I can't live without it. And they continue to see the exact same profits as they were seeing before. And that should be it. That should be everything. Went over every single tab here, giving you some very useful information and showing you that how useful the information will be in the future when more data is presented to it. So anyway, have a great day. My name's Troy Turner. Goodbye.